Nothing like heading out the inlet and heading out to spend some time at the islands. But hopefully you picked not quite as rough of a day. And speaking of enjoying time at the islands, if you've ever thought about taking your boat out to the islands, hang out to the end of the video because we're going to be at the Palm Beach Boat Show hosting our seminar on how to take a boat to the Bahamas, and we want to talk to you. But let's get this one started. Welcome back, crew, to this week's episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week.
So, what does it take to get out of that situation?
Now, when we talk about hanging out at the islands, this is not what we had in mind, but I gotta imagine this is not what they had in mind when they decided to go out and take the boat out for the day as well. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's plenty of you watching right now, like, BG, it's still 30 degrees where I'm at. I would take this any day of the week, being stuck on the hard in the sun like that, but you know what? There are advantages to being stuck on the hard in the cold as well. It means you can get some of those winter projects done a little easier. The boys in Florida can't pull this one off. If they want to get the boat waxed and ready for the season, they gotta pull her out of the water. Our guy here, no need. Grab a chair, go ahead and spend that cold winter day doing that, instead of wasting a nice spring day later getting it done when you should be out there on the boat. Kind of like this crew. Spring, they're already out there getting stuff done, even though I don't really recommend this, as things could go wrong and that would not end in their favor, kind of like we see right here. Now let me know when you see this. Is your reaction time this good? Would you have missed this boat? The wild part to this story, if I'm understanding this correctly, is even after this happened, the driver who lost the boat didn't stop. They just kept going. And according to Highway Patrol in California, they've contacted the registered owner of the vessel, yet he claims he sold the boat and he's not quite sure who he sold it to, putting the police in a hard spot. And speaking of being in a hard spot, it's not uncommon for boaters to find themselves in hard spots as well. I guess the real question on this one is how he got himself this close to a fixed pier to begin with. Sometimes it can be hard to get yourself out of these spots, but how do you wind up in that spot that close to start off? And then, of course, he tosses it in reverse right back toward the pier. I know he's trying to get the bow turned around to where he can get it heading into the right direction. But on this one, I probably would have just powered out in reverse as hard as I could have until I got myself into the right spot, because even right here, you're going to hit the pier again. Now, even though our last boater showed us a boater in a hard spot, I guess there are plenty of worse hard spots you could wind up in boating, like being on the hard, or heck, maybe there's even worse soft spots you can be in, like this crew shows. Now, of course, instead of finding ourselves in a hard spot on a boat, sometimes we'll wind up hitting a hard spot. One of my favorite things about this scene is it shows you the difference between a boat owner and a boat guest. Our lady was living her best life, probably because she doesn't own the boat. And then, of course, there's those times where you get out there, think you're going to have a nice, easy day of boating. Maybe you wind up just hanging out on the beach a little bit, and you still find yourself getting smacked into a hard spot. Boating really is one of those interesting hobbies because it is a pretty easy way to find yourself in a hard or tough spot. Boats don't handle like cars. A car on drive pavement is pretty easy to control. Boats, however, not being on drive pavement, dealing with wind, currents, and different weather conditions and different ways the boat handles can really throw people off, especially that first time they get out there and get behind the helm. So whatever you do, if you are going to get behind the helm, make sure you find a spot where there's not other boats around to get a little practice in before you try and jump right into it. Now, as a new boater, if you hit something, don't feel too bad about it. Let's be honest, the golden rule of boating is never approach anything any faster than you're willing to hit it, because it doesn't matter how much experience you have, the longer you're out there in the water, eventually you're going to wind up hitting something. Even pro captains do it. Now here it appears we're doing the ship version of a 3-point turn, and Cap called it just a little bit too close to the dock. Not sure whether this was human error, mechanical error, or just captain error in general, but something obviously went wrong. Big boats, of course, are a little harder to control. Everything happens a little slower, but one thing about a big boat is they are much easier for us to see, meaning we should have an easier time avoiding them. Should. Now, Now, obviously, there's no way in the world the captain should have been anywhere near this boat for an event like this to occur. I have to imagine there's something else at play in that situation, but you never really know. Because bigger boats, we see this all the time as well. This one's got 2 bigger boats. Now, typically when we see a situation like this, one of the bigger boats is at anchor, but it's not like you didn't see this one coming. Again, have to imagine that typically these are under mechanical error of some kind, unless a captain is just absolutely blind, or of course, nobody's at the helm, which might be a little more common than we think. Now, I couldn't imagine this one. Imagine sucking this anchor up into the prop and the kind of mess that would create. I gotta imagine you will wind up getting sucked along and pulled along for the ride when a bigger ship catches the anchor. Now, what do you think they're gonna do in this situation? Are they gonna pull this boat all the way in or just try and drag them into the shallows? I mean, nothing like being in the shallows. You can't really sink in this situation. Now, I've never actually been on one of these setups, but they look like an absolute wild time. Let me know in the comments below, is it really this easy? It just seems like it would be a whole lot more difficult than this to get this boat moving like this and maintain it moving like this through the mud, but somehow this crew winds up pulling it off. And again, now they're in deeper water, so they can sink. Got to be a little more cautious. And speaking of sinking, nothing like having a bad day at work. You know when you get that sinking feeling while you're at work? This crew does. Now, fortunately for this crew, it looks like everybody at least knows how to swim because everybody winds up bailing pretty quick and everybody looks pretty good and they're all right, but I'm not sure I'd want to be in this water. Now, water I don't mind being in, well, that's going to be down in the Bahamas. If you've ever thought about taking your boat over to the Bahamas, we got an opportunity for you. We are going to be over at the Palm Beach Boat Show here at the end of the month, hosting our annual seminar on how to take your vessel to the Bahamas. In collaboration with the Bahamas Tourism Ministry, we'll be hosting these seminars on Friday, March 27th at 2 p.m. and Saturday, March 28th at 11 a.m. at the seminar booth at the boat show. Be sure to swing by and you too can learn exactly what it takes to take your vessel over to the Bahamas and have the time of your life. Still a little intimidated about taking your boat to another country? Well, guess what? We've got an easier way to do it. You can join us on our annual trip to the Bahamas this year. We will be going from Fort Lauderdale over to Bimini on June 18th. We will be hosting a fling in collaboration with the Bahamas Tourism Ministry. The information's over on Bahamas.com. I will put a link in the description below where you can go check out all the details on how to sign up to join us on our trip. We've done this twice before. We are limited to 30 boats. In the last 2 times we did it, we had more than 30 people register. So if you're interested in something like this, sign up now. It costs nothing today to go ahead and get yourself committed to go to the trip. But thanks for watching, crew. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here, just like Adam Coolidge and Loads Horror did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button.